We begin with the new chapter, that is Unit 3 or Chapter 3, Shear and Bond. So after having studied the introduction part in RCC and then the preliminary design of flexure, that is finding the AST, the area of steel required, and developing the cross section, the width and the effective depth or the overall depth, applying the parameters, that is defining what type of grade of concrete would be used in a particular beam, what would be the type of steel which would be provided over there, what is the grade of steel. After having understood all that, we will be going further in the part of design of the beam, that is we have to design for shear. In the limit state of collapse, one part is flexure, one part is shear. Now whenever we design any RCC beams, okay, we understand that moments do come on the beam. Any beam is there, it would be having a moment, but at the same time it also has a shear force. We have earlier studied the bending moment diagram, we have also studied the shear force diagram, so we understand that on a beam whenever there is loading, there is bending moment as well as shear. So in the previous chapter we have done the design for bending. Whenever there is bending moment coming, what would be the design done, what would be the procedure used, what would be the section, what would be the steel, all that we have done earlier. Now we also understand that apart from bending and shear, there could be axial forces, that is axial tension or axial compression also coming in a member. There could be torsion also coming in the member. Now whenever we are studying in this chapter about shear, we will be looking only at flexural shear, and this flexural shear which is accompanied by the bending moment. Normally it is accompanied by the bending moment is there along with it. This is termed upon only as shear. We will not be terming it as flexural shear, but this is known as shear. Generally for shear, what we do is we provide transverse reinforcement. Now transverse means perpendicular to the longitudinal axis or perpendicular to the longitudinal reinforcement. So this reinforcement, transverse reinforcement known as shear reinforcement, we provide in a beam to take care of this flexural shear or shear. Okay, so this is what we are going to study in this particular chapter. Now as we begin with, let us start with the assumption. We know that earlier when we have designed the beams, we know that for beams, columns, walls, we have said that the assumption, the first assumption, that plane section remain plane before bending and after bending also, that is upon loading after bending also, we assume that that assumption is valid for shear, that is flexural shear too. We may please note over here that if the beam is a deep beam, this assumption may not be true. This assumption may not hold. At the same time, if the loads are very heavy, the loads are very sudden, okay, such as the members such as brackets or corbels, haunches which are supporting the gantry girders, okay, the pile caps. Now these may not follow the same assumption, that is plane section before bending remain plane after bending also. Now over there we are going to use a strut and tie model of analyzing shear. Other than that, for flexural shear, what we are understanding, what we are studying, the model which we are going to use is a truss model, a truss analogy, just like a truss. Okay, if the loads are very heavy, if the member is something like a haunch or a bracket or pile cap or a corbel where the loads are really sudden or heavy, over there we cannot be applying the same principles. We are going to use a different model, that is a strut and tie model of design, of shear design. Let us also understand that our code, the IS 456, treats shear in limit state of collapse. That means if something shears, it collapses. But let us understand that the failure of RCC beam in flexural shear may not cause immediate collapse. Normally the thing will not collapse because of shear immediately, but surely it can lead to less or reduced moment bearing capacity, moment resisting capacity, its own capability. It may be reduced because of failure in shear. So how that is, what is the mechanism we are going to deal with now further. So remember, because of shear we may not have immediate failure, but because of failure there could be reduced moment resisting capability. Now that can be dangerous. What I would like to mention to you is the behavior of RCC to resist shear is extremely complex. How it would be behaving at a particular point of time is very difficult to say, because of one thing, that it is not homogeneous. What happens is RCC beam is non-homogeneous, something like if it was sorry, if it was only of iron or steel or aluminium, wholly made of iron, wholly made of steel, wholly made of aluminium, or the whole beam of wood, then the material is the same. Over here inside it the material is different. We have sand, we have aggregates packed and linked together by a paste which has dried up now, called cement, and we have reinforcement over there. Now all these things are different, they behave differently. Now due to shear their behavior is different. So now this makes the whole behavior of the RCC beam very different. The sand aggregate that is interlock, the reinforcement present over there, then the concrete as a whole, how it will be behaving. So what happens is, because of all this it becomes so complex that the theory of shear is based on lot of research which has been done. After research being done, the experiments have been done, the test results have come out, and based on these test results and the assumptions which have been simplified, this theory has been based, the design process has been based. So sometimes this theory which we are going to refer to or we are going to use is known as simplified method, or the conventional method, the method which is being regularly used. So let me tell in brief what is this mechanism of shear transfer, so that we understand what exactly happens when there is something called as shear resistance over there. Now whenever we are talking of shear resistance, there are various mechanisms in place. The shear force gets transmitted between one mechanism to another through different planes of RCC beam, different planes, adjacent planes. We have to understand one thing: in a beam, whichever, whether it is a simply supported beam or a cantilever beam, either a simply supported beam or a cantilever beam, we find that the maximum shear will always be at the support. The support reaction defines the maximum shear. So whatever may be the beam, the maximum shear will be equal to the upward reaction given by the support. So let us consider that this is the shear force V, okay, acting upon the beam. Now where is this acting? Obviously where the maximum shear force is, that is at the reaction point at the support. Now the upward force is V and the downward forces are the resisting forces trying to prevent the cut action or the shearing action of the beam. The upward reaction is trying to cut the beam upwards, make the slice upwards, and the loading on the beam tries to cut it downwards. Now what are the internal forces which are trying to resist this particular cut? The first thing, the uncracked portion of the concrete. The concrete which is uncracked, the concrete which is intact, has its own shear resisting capability. Like the way it has its own moment resisting capability, over here it has its own shear resisting capability, the uncracked portion of the concrete. So something like in this first sketch over here, this top portion which is uncracked, it will be having its own capability, or the portion whichever has remained uncracked, it has its own capability of resisting the shear. Let me call it as VOC. Now there are some aggregates within this. Now obviously when the shear force acts, it tries to cut a portion like this. It tries to cut a portion. Now when it is trying to cut a portion, obviously it comes and faces a particular aggregate. Either it has to cut a aggregate or it has to dislocate a aggregate. Let us consider that the aggregate is quite strong to be cut, so it needs to be dislodged from there. Now this aggregate is sitting or is interlocked within the other aggregates and the sand particles bound by cement. So this interlock, this bonding between the aggregate and its surrounding and its environment over there resists the shear force, prevents the cutting to some extent. So there is this force also which comes into account, apart from the whole force resisting capability of uncracked concrete. Now in the portion where it is about to crack, there is aggregate interlock. Now this force tries to prevent the shearing of prevents the dislodging of the aggregate, the cutting off of the bond between aggregate and the other things. Now this force also resists the external acting shear force. Now third force is the dowel action. Now there is reinforcement over here, there is reinforcement which has been shown over here, that dowel action. Now this reinforcement, the shear will try to cut it. Now as it tries to cut this reinforcement prevents that. The dowel action is pulling out action. It tries to get pulled out, but the bonding of the reinforcement inside does not allow it to be dislodged, does not allow it to be moved out. So that dowel action is there, plus the shear resistance of the stirrups and the reinforcement whichever has been provided. Now this reinforcement has its own shear resistance. The dowel action is because of it being pulled out from here. The shear tries to pull it out. Okay, so that was the earlier one. The shear resistance of the reinforcement is cutting of the reinforcement. Not only this, there may be the vertical stirrups or the inclined stirrups. Now look at the dowel action, the aggregate interlock. Aggregate interlock may directly act in a plane which is the cutting plane. The vertical component of that, the vertical component will try to resist this. The vertical component of the aggregate interlock tries to resist the shear force. Shear force is vertical. Over here the vertical component will be resisting. The reinforcement is tried to be pulled out. Over here the dowel action will be resisting. The dowel action over here prevents the bar to be moved out. Similarly, the concrete is there, its own resistance is there, which is taking care of the shear force, the shear stress coming on the beam. So all these things together in various magnitudes resist the external acting shear. That means the total shear force coming on the beam is equal to the shear force resisted by the uncracked part of the concrete, the aggregate interlock, the shear resisted by the aggregate interlock, then the shear resisted by the dowel action of the reinforcement, and the shear resisted by the stirrups. So all these things together will be taking care of the shear stress coming on the beam, and that's how the shear resistance occurs. Now one we have to understand, depending upon the loading on the beam, the cracking in the beam and the geometric properties of the beam, at any point of time different mechanisms may be in the place, different mechanisms may be acting. Okay, these mechanisms may be acting to resist the external acting shear force. Now it could be only the VUC, that is the resistance of the uncracked concrete, or part of shear resistance from the stirrups, part from aggregate interlock, part from the dowel action. It could be anything. Now let us understand that when initially, right in the beginning, when the load is just applied, the full concrete is uncracked. There are no hairline cracks also developed. The full concrete is uncracked. Understand that it is this full concrete itself which will be taking the entire shear force. It is understood that way, that at a point of time it could be the full concrete itself taking the shear force. When the loading is less, then there is no cracking. Now when the loading increases, when the hairline cracks develop, and they go and touch the reinforcement. We have seen that earlier. The hairline cracks go and touch the reinforcement. When they touch the reinforcement starts taking the stress in bending, and then the design was done as far as the beam design, flexural design was concerned. Now once that has cracked, there is aggregate interlock which comes into action. The shear reinforcement which is there, it tries to prevent the crack. It tries to prevent the diagonal cracks also, which would actually move further, So all these things, the aggregate interlock, the reinforcement, the shear reinforcement, all these things would come into picture. At the same time, there would be some portion of concrete which is uncracked, that also would come in picture. So they would share the load, and all the four mechanisms at this place would become effective in resisting the shear force. Now remember one thing, one important thing which has been found through the experiment is this: the presence of longitudinal reinforcement, the main reinforcement in tension, it not only helps to enhance the dowel action. We have seen that dowel action resists the shear, but it also facilitates in controlling the propagation of flexural cracks. The cracks which are there down, the cracks which would start here, the cracks would not continue further if this reinforcement is there. Now when the cracks would stop here, the uncracked portion would be from here to here. The resistance of the beam, its own capability increases. So having reinforcement in the flexural tension always is helpful. This flexural tension reinforcement prevents the crack from moving further. The crack comes and touches over here, so uncracked portion remains from here to here. Its capability increases. If this was not there, the cracks would have propagated further, the depth would have reduced. Now we understand that having the reinforcement, longitudinal reinforcement, is beneficial for shear. At the same time, it has been observed that more amount of reinforcement over here gives better shear resistance, gives greater shear resistance. So the experiments have proved that the larger amount of reinforcement we provide over here in flexural tension, it is always better in resisting shear, much better than the lesser reinforcement. So this is about the mechanism of shear transfer. So as we understand, the shear transfer, the maximum shear occurs at the support, whichever support it may be. And when we consider what resists the shear, there are four things. One is its own internal capability. Second thing is the aggregate interlock. Third thing is the dowel action of the reinforcement. And fourth thing is the shear reinforcement provided. Now all these things together resists the shear in different magnitudes, but together it is always equal to the capital V, or the shear force coming on the beam.